The razor blade felt surprisingly warm against my wrist as I sat in the bathtub, watching my blood swirl pink in the water. Above me, I could hear the sounds of Marcus and Elena's anniversary party, laughter, clinking glasses, the jazz music she had chosen because it made her feel sophisticated. 2 years of marriage, and they were celebrating while I bled out 1 floor below, finally choosing my exit from this nightmare. "Marie's probably just tired," I heard Elena's voice drift down from upstairs, sweet as poisoned honey. "You know how emotional she gets at parties. She'll be fine." Emotional. That's what they always called it when I cried watching them together, when I broke down seeing the way he looked at her like she hung the moon. Emotional, as if my shattered heart was just a character flaw, an inconvenience to their perfect love story. The water was getting cold. My vision was starting to blur at the edges. Good. Soon I wouldn't have to watch him ignore my tears for her smile anymore. "I love you, Elena." Marcus's voice carried down through the floorboards, the same words he'd whispered to me for 5 years before she crooked her finger and summoned him away. "You're everything I never knew I needed." Those words followed me into the darkness. But then, impossibly, inexplicably, I opened my eyes. I was 18 again, sitting in my childhood bedroom on my birthday morning, alive and breathing and staring at my reflection in my vanity mirror. My wrists were unmarked. The pearl necklace my grandmother had given me lay heavy around my neck, exactly as it had been 7 years ago. This time I knew exactly what Elena was, and this time Marcus would learn what it felt like to beg for love that would never come. "Marie, darling," my mother's voice called up the stairs. "Elena's here, and she's brought the most wonderful surprise." A surprise. In my previous life, Elena had seduced Marcus at my 18th birthday party before the cake was even cut. She'd spotted his name on the guest list, our family friend's son home from Harvard, and decided he would make the perfect trophy husband. But I remembered something else now. The way Elena's smile had faltered when she first saw Marcus. The way she'd asked me 3 times if I really, truly cared about him. She had wanted him, yes, but she'd also been testing me, seeing if I'd fight for him. I hadn't. I'd stepped aside with a broken heart and a noble speech about wanting them both to be happy. This time would be different. I selected my outfit carefully, not the innocent pink dress I'd worn before, but a sleek black number that Elena had given me, claiming it was too sophisticated for someone my age. She'd been trying to make me feel childish. Instead, she'd given me armour. When I walked downstairs, my mother gasped, "Marie, you look stunning." Elena turned from arranging flowers, and I saw the exact moment she realised I'd changed. Her perfect smile froze, blue eyes narrowing as she took in my transformation. "Interesting choice," she said carefully, "very mature." "I thought it was time," I replied, meeting her gaze steadily. "I'm 18 now, old enough to make my own decisions about everything." The doorbell rang, Marcus's parents greeting my mother warmly. And behind them, "Is that little Marie?" Marcus's voice, deeper now but still carrying that easy charm. I hardly recognised her from Elena's description. When he appeared in the doorway, I gripped the banister to steady myself. Even knowing what he would become, Marcus at 22 was breathtakingly handsome. Tall and lean with warm brown eyes, and the smile that had once convinced me I was the luckiest girl alive. In my first life, I'd practically thrown myself into his arms. This time I simply smiled and extended my hand like a lady greeting an acquaintance. "Marcus, how nice to see you again." He blinked, clearly taken aback by my composure. His eyes travelled from my face to my dress, and I saw the exact moment when he stopped seeing Eleanor's little sister and started seeing me as a woman. "Marie," he took my hand, his touch lingering. "You look incredible." Behind him, Eleanor's smile sharpened to a razor's edge. "Doesn't she?" Elena glided forward, sliding her arm through Marcus's with practiced ease. Though I keep telling her that black is such a serious colour for a birthday party. Don't you think something lighter would be more appropriate, Marcus? I think she looks perfect, Marcus said, his eyes still on me. Sometimes serious is exactly what the occasion calls for. Elena's arm tightened on his, but her laugh remained musical. Well, aren't you the charmer? No wonder all the girls at Harvard were crying when you graduated. There was no one worth crying over, he said, but his eyes remained on me. I was waiting to come home. The words hit me like a physical blow, exactly as they had 7 years ago. In my previous life, I'd treasured them, convinced myself he meant me. Now I understood they were just pretty words, the kind a charming young man said to make a girl feel special. How romantic, I said, my voice carefully neutral. I'm sure whoever you were waiting for is very lucky. The afternoon progressed exactly as I remembered, except for my own behaviour. Where I had once hung on Marcus's every word, I now participated in conversations with cool intelligence. Where I had once followed him around like a lovesick puppy, I now moved through my party with confidence, letting him come to me, and he did come to me. Again and again, I'd catch him watching me across the room. When Eleanor was busy charming my parents' friends, he'd drift to my side with questions about my college plans, my interests, my thoughts on everything from literature to politics. You've changed, he said during a quiet moment on the back porch. I mean, you were always smart, but now you're... I don't know how to describe it. Self-possessed, I suggested, leaning against the railing. Confident? No longer a child, desperately seeking approval from her elders? He laughed uncertainly. When you put it like that, it makes me sound patronising. Were you? Patronising? I turned to face him, genuinely curious. In my first life, I'd never questioned why a 22-year-old college graduate would be interested in a high school senior. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Maybe, he said finally. Maybe I was so used to thinking of you as Elena's little sister that I never really saw you as yourself. And now I can't stop looking at you. Once upon a time, those words would have sent me into raptures. Now they felt like a test. That's interesting, I said thoughtfully, because Elena's been looking at you all day like she's planning something. Marcus blinked. What do you mean? You haven't seen her in almost 4 years, have you, since before you left for college? No, but we've exchanged letters. Have you? I let surprise colour my voice. She never mentioned that. It was a careful seed of doubt, planted with surgical precision. Elena had indeed written to Marcus, but sporadically and with casual friendliness. She'd been playing a longer game, waiting for him to come home established and successful. Would you like to have dinner with me tomorrow? He asked suddenly. Just the two of us? The déjà vu was overwhelming. In my previous life, this was when we'd shared our first kiss right here on this porch. That's very sweet of you to ask, I said, my voice warm but not eager. But, actually, I'm not available tomorrow. Marcus's face fell dramatically. Oh, of course, I should have assumed. Is it someone from school? Something like that. I didn't elaborate, watching him process this unexpected rejection. Maybe another time. I left him standing alone on the porch with the taste of unexpected rejection. The party began winding down as evening approached. I watched Eleanor work the room with practiced skill, but I also noticed the way her eyes kept tracking Marcus's movements, the slight tightening around her mouth when she saw him talking to me. She was still planning her move. In my first life, it had come at the very end of the party, when she'd cornered Marcus in the kitchen. This time, I was ready for her. Eleanor, I said, appearing at her side, could I speak with you for a moment, privately? I led her upstairs to my room. Eleanor settled gracefully on my window seat. You didn't like your gift, she said, noticing the unopened box on my dresser, the bracelet with the broken heart charm. I loved it, I said truthfully. It was remarkably thoughtful, A broken heart for the girl whose heart you were planning to break. The silence was deafening. Elena's mask didn't slip, but her eyes went very still. I'm not sure what you mean, Marie. Don't you? You invited Marcus today. You've been writing to him. You've spent the entire party positioning yourself as the perfect woman. And tomorrow, after you're convinced he's out of reach for me, you'll make your move. Elena studied me for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had lost its honeyed sweetness. You've certainly developed an active imagination. Have I? Tell me, Elena, what did you write to him about in your letters? Everything he mentioned tonight. His favourite professors, his thesis topic, his concerns about starting his career. You already knew all of it. You've been studying him, learning what he wants to hear. The question is, why? For the first time in my memory, Eleanor looked genuinely rattled. You're being paranoid. Am I? Then you'll be happy to know I'm planning to focus on my studies instead of chasing after men who are out of my league. In fact, I think it would be best if I stepped back from any romantic entanglements entirely. I watched Eleanor process this, seeing the exact moment she realised I was handing her Marcus on a silver platter. Her smile returned, genuine this time. That sounds very wise, sweetheart. Very mature. When we returned to the living room, Marcus looked up hopefully. There you are, he said. I was hoping we could finish our conversation. Actually, Eleanor interjected smoothly, I was hoping to steal you away for a moment, Marcus. I wanted to show you the garden. Marcus glanced between us, clearly torn. In my first life, I'd made some excuse about helping in the kitchen. This time, I simply smiled. Go ahead, I said. I need to help Mother with the dishes anyway. But instead of heading to the kitchen, I slipped quietly onto the back porch where I'd have a perfect view of the garden. Eleanor was already at work, standing close enough that he'd catch her perfume, gesturing gracefully at the roses. I've been so lost since graduation, I heard her say, her voice carrying the perfect note of vulnerable uncertainty. Sometimes I think what I really want is to find someone to build a life with, someone who shares my values, my dreams. Classic Eleanor. Present herself as a woman who knew her own mind, but was wise enough to want partnership over career ambition. And it was working. I could see it in the way he turned toward her, giving her his full attention. They were standing closer now, Eleanor having manoeuvred them to the secluded corner by the trellis. In my previous life, this was where they had shared their first kiss while I washed dishes inside, completely oblivious. But this time, I was watching. This time, I saw Elena's hand brush against his arm, saw her tilt her face up toward his with practiced innocence, saw the exact moment Marcus decided to kiss her. Just as Marcus leaned down toward Eleanor, the motion sensor light by the patio suddenly blazed to life, flooding them in harsh white light. Both of them jumped apart, startled. Marcus laughed nervously while Eleanor looked annoyed. They didn't see me slip back inside or notice that I'd borrowed my father's car keys. Sometimes fate needed a little help. As the last guest left, Marcus lingered on the front steps. Marie, he said, catching my arm, about tomorrow night. I told you, I'm not available. Right, but maybe the night after, or this weekend? I looked at him for a long moment. Marcus, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you actually want to take me to dinner? Or are you just trying to prove you can... The question caught him off guard. What do you mean? I mean, you've known me since I was 13, and you've never shown any romantic interest until today. What changed? Did I suddenly become worth your attention because I'm not throwing myself at your feet? Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it again. I could see him examining his own motivations. I don't think that's what this is. Isn't it? Marcus, you're a good man, but you're also used to being the most attractive option in any room. When a woman doesn't immediately fall for your charm, it becomes a challenge instead of a choice. You think very little of me. On the contrary, but I'm not interested in being another conquest. I started to close the door, but his hand pressed against it. You're wrong about me, he said quietly, and you're wrong about what I want. Maybe, but I'm not wrong about what I want. I looked at him one last time. I want someone who chooses me first, not someone who settles for me after rejection or conquest. I want someone who sees me, really sees me, and I want someone who loves me enough to fight for me when things get difficult. What if I told you I could be that person? Then I'd say, prove it. But not to me. Prove it to yourself first. When I closed the door, he didn't try to stop me. The next 3 weeks passed like a strange dream. Marcus called twice, asking if I'd changed my mind about dinner. Both times I politely declined. Elena, meanwhile, launched a full-scale campaign. She started stopping by daily, always perfectly dressed, always with some excuse, and always, somehow, managing to be there when Marcus came by. Because he did come by. Ostensibly to visit with my father, but I noticed how his eyes sought me out, how he found excuses to ask my opinions on everything. I also noticed how Elena positioned herself in these conversations, agreeing with everything he said while subtly undermining any point I made. Marie has such interesting ideas, she'd say with an indulgent smile, though I sometimes think she enjoys being contrary just for the sake of it. Each comment was designed to make me sound naive, impulsive, childish. In my first life, they had worked. This time, I simply smiled and changed the subject. But I was learning things too. I was learning that Eleanor's perfect mask occasionally slipped when she thought no one was watching. I noticed how she tensed whenever Marcus laughed at something I said. I saw the way she studied me when she thought I wasn't looking. Most importantly, I was learning that Marcus was fighting an internal war he didn't understand. He'd arrived expecting to find the same adoring teenager. Instead, he'd found a woman who challenged him, who wasn't impressed by his accomplishments, who treated him like an interesting stranger rather than a long-awaited saviour. It was driving him crazy. I don't understand you anymore, he said one evening when he'd found me reading in the garden. You used to... I thought you... Thought I what? I thought you cared about me. The way you used to look at me, the way you'd light up when I came around. Was I imagining all that? No, I said simply, you weren't imagining it. Then what happened? I closed my book. Marcus, do you remember what you said to me 3 years ago, right before you left for college? He was quiet, thinking. I said a lot of things. You said, don't grow up too much while I'm gone, Marie. I like you just the way you are. Recognition dawned in his eyes. I remember. At the time, I thought it was romantic. But what you were really saying was, stay the same adorable child I can come home to whenever I need an ego boost. You didn't want me to grow up, Marcus. You wanted me frozen in time as your devoted little admirer. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? Be honest. Were you ever actually planning to pursue something real with me? Or was I just a comfortable fallback? Marcus was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. I don't know. It was the first completely honest thing he'd said to me since coming home. Thank you, I said, for being truthful. Marie, I think I'm falling in love with you. The real you, the woman you've become. My heart clenched painfully. But what about Eleanor? What about her? She's in love with you, Marcus. Surely you've noticed. He looked genuinely startled. Eleanor? No. We're friends. She's been more than friendly. She's been positioning herself as the perfect wife for a successful young man like yourself. And it's working, isn't it? When you imagine your future, don't you see someone exactly like her beside you? Marcus opened his mouth to deny it, then stopped. I could see him thinking, really thinking, about what he actually wanted versus what was expected of him. She is everything I always thought I wanted, he said slowly. I know, beautiful, sophisticated, well-bred, charming. She'd make you the envy of every man you know. But I stood up. But that's a conversation you need to have with yourself, not with me. I left him sitting in the garden, staring at nothing. 3 days later, Elena made her move. I was in town when I saw them through the window of Miller's Cafe. Elena sat across from Marcus, leaning forward with perfect vulnerability. Her hand rested on the table, fingers splayed just enough that he could take it if he chose. She looked absolutely perfect, and Marcus looked miserable. When I got home, I found Marcus's car in our driveway. Through the window, I could see him sitting stiffly in our living room while Elena poured tea. When I walked in, both of them looked up. Elena's smile was brilliant, but there was something sharp behind it. Marie, perfect timing. Marcus and I were just discussing the most wonderful news. I set down my books, waiting. We're engaged, Elena announced triumphantly. The words hit me like a physical blow. For a moment, I was 18 again, hearing those same words for the first time. But then I looked at Marcus's face, pale, shocked, trapped, and realised what had actually happened. Elena had proposed to him. Congratulations, I said evenly. When's the wedding? Elena blinked, clearly expecting a different reaction. We haven't set a date yet. We wanted to tell our families first. I'm sure they'll be thrilled. I looked at Marcus, who was staring at his hands. Marcus, you seem quiet, overwhelmed by happiness. He lifted his eyes to mine, and I saw everything I needed to see. Panic, regret, a desperate plea for help he was too proud to voice. It's sudden, he managed. The best things always are, Elena said quickly, moving to perch on the arm of his chair. Her hand settled possessively on his shoulder. When you know, you know. I should let you two celebrate privately, I said, gathering my books. This is clearly a very special moment. Actually, Marcus stood suddenly, almost dislodging Elena. I should go. I have things to think about. Elena's mask slipped for just a second. Of course, take all the time you need. But as Marcus headed for the door, she caught his arm. Marcus, you are happy, aren't you? For a long moment, he didn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. I need some air. After he left, Elena and I stood in the suddenly silent living room. Well, she said brightly, that went perfectly. Did it? He's just overwhelmed. Men always panic when they realise they're ready to settle down. Elena, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you actually love him, or do you just love winning? The question hung between us. Elena's smile finally cracked. What kind of question is that? An honest one, because what I just witnessed wasn't a man accepting a proposal from the woman he loves. That was a man being cornered. Elena's eyes flashed. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Tell me, what did you threaten him with? What ultimatum did you give him to force that proposal? For a moment, I thought she might actually tell me. Her composure wavered, and I glimpsed the insecure woman beneath, someone so afraid of not being chosen that she'd stopped believing anyone could choose her willingly. But then, the mask snapped back into place. He loves me, Marie. He's always loved me. If he loves you so much, why did he look like he was about to be sick when you announced your engagement? He's nervous. It's a big step. Eleanor. I moved closer. He doesn't love you. He never has. And somewhere deep down, you know that. The silence stretched between us. When Eleanor finally spoke, her voice was very quiet. he could learn to love me. Could he? Or would you spend your entire marriage trying to force feelings that don't exist? Eleanor's hands clenched into fists. You think you're so wise now, don't you? But you're still the same naive little girl who thinks love conquers all. Maybe. But at least I'm not the woman who thinks she can build a marriage on manipulation and fear. Fear? Elena laughed hollowly. What could Marcus possibly fear from me? The same thing everyone fears from you, Eleanor. That if they don't give you what you want, you'll make them pay for it. The words hit their target. Elena went very still. What did you tell him, Eleanor? That I'd be heartbroken if he chose me over you? That it would destroy our family? That he'd be a monster for taking advantage of his friend's naive little daughter? Each question landed like a physical blow. Eleanor's perfect composure was crumbling. You don't understand, she whispered. I've loved him for years. I wrote to him all through college. I planned my entire life around him coming home. You decided he was yours without ever asking if he wanted to be? You built a fantasy relationship with someone who barely knew you existed? Eleanor's face crumpled. He would have chosen you if I hadn't made him see how wrong it would be. He would have chosen you. There it was, the confession I'd been waiting 7 years to hear. So you saved him from making a terrible mistake. Yes, you're 18, Marie. You don't know what you want. I know I don't want a man who can be talked out of loving me. Eleanor stared at me, tears streaming down her face. What? If Marcus truly loved me, nothing you said would have mattered. If he truly wanted to be with me, he would have fought for that. But he didn't, because it was easier to take what you offered than to fight for what he actually wanted. I moved toward the stairs. Now, you decide whether you want a husband who loves you or a husband who's trapped with you. And Marcus decides whether he wants to be a man who fights for what he wants or a man who settles for what's easiest. And you? I smiled sadly. I decide whether I want either of you in my life at all. Marcus appeared at my bedroom window at midnight 3 days later, tapping softly on the glass. I almost didn't let him in, but something about the slump of his shoulders made me open the window. Are you insane? I whispered as he climbed through. My parents are right down the hall. I had to see you. He looked terrible, unshaven, hollow-eyed. I've been going crazy. Congratulations on your engagement. Very romantic proposal, I'm sure. Marcus flinched. Marie, about that. About what? About how Eleanor cornered you in a public place and announced your engagement before you could object. It wasn't like that. Tell me what it was like then. Marcus struggled with something internal. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. She said you'd asked her to talk to me. Said you'd realised we were wrong for each other, but didn't know how to tell me without hurting my feelings. She said you wanted her to let me down gently. I felt cold fury wash over me. And you believed her? I wanted to believe her, because the alternative was admitting that I'd fallen in love with someone who didn't want me back. Marcus, do you think I'm stupid? What? No, of course not. Then why would you think I'd send Elena to break up with you for me? Do you think I'm such a coward that I couldn't have that conversation myself? He was quiet, and I could see the exact moment the logic hit him. I was scared, he admitted. You'd been so different, so distant, I thought maybe you'd realised I wasn't worth your time. And instead of asking me directly, you decided to believe my sister when she offered you a convenient escape route. When you put it like that, it sounds cowardly, like the behaviour of a man who doesn't actually want to fight for what he claims to love. Marcus flinched. Marie, please. I know I made a mistake, but I can fix this. I can call off the engagement. Can you? Elena's already announced it to half the town. Are you really going to humiliate her publicly? If that's what it takes to get what you want, yes, I believe you would. But what about what I want, Marcus? He stared at me, not understanding. What do you want? I stood up, moving to look out at the garden. I want you to leave. Marie, I want you to go back to Elena. Marry her if that's what you choose, and leave me alone. But I love you. I turned to face him. Do you? Because in my experience, love means putting the other person first. Love means fighting for them, choosing them, protecting them. What you feel for me isn't love, Marcus. It's guilt. That's not true, isn't it? You feel guilty for taking me for granted. You feel guilty for letting Eleanor manipulate you. You feel guilty for not being the man you thought you were. But guilt isn't love, and I won't be your penance. Marcus's face crumpled. Then what am I supposed to do? That's not my problem anymore. Marie, please, tell me how to fix this. I can't. That's something you have to figure out for yourself. But I don't know how. Then maybe you're not ready to be in a relationship with anyone. The truth seemed to hit him like a physical blow. He sat down heavily, head in his hands. I've ruined everything, haven't I? I felt a flicker of sympathy. This confused young man who'd never had to work for anything in his life. But sympathy wasn't enough anymore. Marcus, you need to go. If Elena finds out you are here, let her find out. I don't care anymore. But I do, because unlike you, I won't let her pay for my choices. He looked up confused. What do you mean? I mean, Eleanor may be manipulative and selfish, but she's also desperately in love with you. If you humiliate her now, if you leave her at the altar for her younger sister, it will destroy her, and I won't be responsible for that destruction. So you're protecting her after everything she's done? I'm protecting myself from becoming the kind of person who builds her happiness on someone else's devastation. Marcus stared at me for a long moment. You're remarkable. I don't deserve you. No, I agreed. You don't. He climbed back through the window without another word. I watched him walk away across the dark garden, and something inside me finally let go. The desperate, clinging love I'd carried for him through death and rebirth. The fantasy that we were meant to be together. Marcus Chen was a good man who would probably make someone very happy someday. But he wasn't my person. He'd never really been my person. 3 weeks later, I received an invitation to Marcus and Elena's wedding. I didn't go. Instead, I spent that Saturday at the library researching universities with strong pre-law programs. If I was going to be alone, I was going to be alone on my own terms. The phone call came on a Tuesday evening in October, 6 months after the wedding. Eleanor's voice was bright and brittle. Marie, how are you settling in at school? Fine. How's married life? A pause, too long to be natural. Wonderful. Marcus is so busy with his new job. She chatted about furniture and paint colours, but underneath I could hear something desperate. Eleanor, are you happy? Another pause, longer this time. Of course I'm happy. Why would you ask that? Because you sound like you're trying to convince yourself. Silence stretched between us. When Eleanor spoke again, her voice was very small. He doesn't love me, Marie. The words I'd been expecting for months. What do you mean? He tried. For a while, he really tried, but I could see it in his eyes. He was going through the motions, playing a role. And now he doesn't even pretend anymore. He's polite, distant. He sleeps in the guest room. He works late every night rather than come home to me. I thought about Marcus, trapped in a marriage he'd never wanted. I thought about Elena watching her perfect life crumble. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Are you? Really? Yes, No one deserves to live like that. Elena was crying now. I thought I could make him love me. I thought if I was perfect enough, patient enough. Elena, you can't force someone to love you. Not really. Not in any way that matters. But you could. He loved you. Really loved you. And I destroyed it because I was jealous and selfish and... Stop. This isn't about me anymore. This is about you and Marcus and the choice you both have to make. What choice? Whether to keep pretending this marriage can work or to admit it was a mistake and let each other go. Another long silence. Would you, if he was free, would you consider... No. The answer came without hesitation. Eleanor, I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago. I'm not waiting for Marcus to rescue me or complete me. I'm building my own life. But you loved him. I loved the idea of him, but I never really knew him, did I? Just like he never really knew me. Then, what am I supposed to do? I looked out my dorm room window at the campus spread below me. Students hurrying to class, couples walking hand in hand, people living their real lives instead of fantasies others had created for them. Be brave, I said finally. For once in your life, Eleanor, be brave enough to want something real instead of something perfect. Epilogue, 5 years later. The letter arrived on a spring morning during my final year of law school. Elena's handwriting, elegant but shaky. Marie, I wanted you to hear this from me. Marcus and I are getting divorced. It will be final next month. You were right about everything. We were living a lie, both of us too proud and too scared to admit it. I've enrolled in graduate school, social work. I want to help people the way you helped me, even when I didn't deserve it. Marcus is moving to California for a new job. We're both starting over. I know I have no right to ask this, but I want you to know that I'm sorry for everything. For the years I spent seeing you as competition instead of as my sister. For the lies I told and the pain I caused. You saved us both, Marie, by refusing to let us drag you down with us. I hope someday you can forgive me. But more than that, I hope you're happy. Really, truly happy. Love, Eleanor. P.S. I kept the bracelet I gave you for your 18th birthday. The one with the broken heart. I had it melted down and made into something new. A phoenix rising from ashes. Because that's what you did, isn't it? Rose from the ashes of everything we tried to destroy and became something beautiful. I set the letter down with shaking hands. Outside my apartment window, the city hummed with life. A life I'd built brick by brick, choice by choice. My phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognise. Marie? Marcus's voice, uncertain and hesitant. I hope it's okay that I called. It's fine. I got Elena's letter. Then you know about the divorce? Yes. A pause. I wanted to apologise. For everything. For taking you for granted. For letting Elena manipulate the situation. For not fighting for what I claim to want. Marcus, you don't need to... Yes, I do. I've spent 3 years thinking about what you said that night. I've been seeing a therapist, trying to understand why I've always taken the path of least resistance. I was quiet, letting him talk. I think I was scared. Scared of disappointing people. Scared of making the wrong choice. Scared of really committing to anything. It was easier to let Eleanor make the choice for me, even though I knew it was wrong. And now I'm moving to California, starting fresh, trying to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be what everyone else wants me to be. That sounds healthy. Marie. His voice dropped. I know I don't have any right to ask this, but do you think someday, when I'm better, when I've done the work to become the man I should have been, do you think there might be a chance for us? The question hung between us, carrying the weight of years and choices and roads not taken. In my first life, I would have said yes immediately, would have clung to any hope of reunion. Even now, part of me was tempted, but I thought about the life I'd built here. My studies, my friends, the internship at a prestigious law firm, the man I'd been seeing who made me laugh and challenged my mind, and never once made me feel like I had to earn his attention. "Marcus," I said gently, "I hope you find happiness. Real happiness with someone who loves you exactly as you are. But that someone isn't me. Because you can't forgive me. Because I don't need you anymore." The words weren't cruel, just honest. I could hear him absorbing them, understanding finally that some bridges once burned couldn't be rebuilt. "I'm glad," he said finally. "I'm glad you don't need me. You deserve someone who chooses you first, always." "Yes," I agreed. "I do." After I hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment as the sun set over the city. Tomorrow I would graduate law school. Next month I would start at a firm that specialised in family law, helping other people navigate the wreckage of broken relationships and find their way to new beginnings. My phone buzzed with a text from David, the man I'd been seeing for 6 months. "Dinner tonight? I found a new place I think you'll love." I smiled, typing back my response. "Can't wait." I thought about the girl I'd been in my first life, desperate for love, willing to accept crumbs, measuring my worth by other people's attention. She had died in that bathtub, listening to laughter from the people who couldn't be bothered to notice her absence. But I had lived. I had chosen to live, to fight, to build something better from the ashes of my old dreams. Some stories didn't end with the heroine getting her first love back. Some stories ended with her realizing she deserved so much more. And sometimes, those were the best stories of all. 3 years later, I received another wedding invitation. Eleanor Richardson and Dr. James Morrison were pleased to invite me to their autumn ceremony. I almost didn't go, but curiosity won out, and I found myself sitting in the back of a small chapel, watching my sister exchange vows with a kind-faced man who looked at her like she hung the moon. Elena was radiant in a simple dress, her face glowing with genuine happiness. When she said her vows, words about partnership and growth and choosing love every day, I could see she meant every syllable. During the reception, she found me by the dessert table. "You came," she said, her eyes bright with tears. "I did. Thank you for everything, for forcing me to grow up, for refusing to let me destroy myself. Eleanor, you did the work. I just refused to enable you." She nodded, wiping her eyes carefully. "James wants to meet you. I've told him so much about my brilliant sister, the lawyer." "The sister who saved your marriage before it happened?" Eleanor laughed. "The sister who taught me the difference between wanting someone and loving them." Across the room, I could see James watching us with fond indulgence, clearly smitten with his new wife. He looked like a man who had chosen Eleanor freely, joyfully, without coercion or manipulation. "He's perfect for you," I said. "He is. And Marie?" Elena smiled. "I heard about your engagement. David sounds wonderful." My hand went automatically to the simple solitaire on my finger. David had proposed 3 months ago, not with grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but with a quiet certainty that we belonged together. No games, no manipulation, no desperate need to prove anything. Just love, simple and sure. "He is wonderful," I agreed. Eleanor hugged me then, properly, and for the first time in our lives, it felt like we were really sisters instead of rivals. As I drove home that evening, I thought about the girl who had died in that bathtub years ago, listening to laughter from upstairs. She had thought that story was about Marcus and Elena and their perfect love triumphing over her pathetic need. But it had never been their story at all. It had always been mine. And I had written myself a better ending.